So Adam Newberry, welcome to the show.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Glenn.
So videographer, editor, FedGeek. FedGeek. What's FedGeek?
FedGeek is a government contractor, and I'm actually I'm been with my contract at the FAA for about I'm creeping up on 5 years now, and I've been with two contractors, Cap Media before FedGeek. But they're a small company, woman owned, awesome to work for, and they've kept me busy, very busy.
Yeah, we were talking offline about how you and I had to, I had to reschedule this episode. Maybe this is our fourth time because you know we're blessed. I mean, we've never been busier than now. I think, even especially for me.
Yeah, it's been a very different kind of busy, but I don't feel like I've worked as hard in the last 6 months as I have at any point else in my career. That's an exaggeration, but you know, I felt like I've worked pretty hard. It's and you and I doing this over Zoom. It's like I've entered the Zoom world. You know, seeing friendly, familiar faces in 2 dimensions has become the norm. If I see somebody in 3D, I have to check and make sure, you know, to do one of these to make sure that I got the right vantage.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. No. And I think production wise for me, you know, me and some colleagues, like we were talking about, you know, this podcast and the fact that you watched some previous episodes.
Yeah.
Me and some colleagues tried this podcast twice before, sort of like a hybrid, sometimes in studio, sometimes it wasn't Zoom we were using before, but we were trying this kind of virtual podcast and it wasn't successful at all. And now it seems like, having taken advantage of this time, people are really starting to suck this up. And then, but then what's going to happen to my show, you know, when the floodgates open, when like the old normal, the new normal kind of hybrid happens, you know, will people still be interested? But I just got, maybe I got to find like a different agenda or subject or kind of like progress myself.
Yeah, that's a good point. The new normal starting to creep into my life. You know, I've been working at this desk. Well, it's some version of this desk in my house for the last 6 months, but I am starting to every now and again, like tomorrow I'll be down in DC in my office. Next week I've got a shoot that's it's penciled in at the moment. It's tentative, but you know, I'll wind up down there at some point in the next couple of weeks. So myself and my counterpart, we are starting to see, and typically when I'm going into the office, it's because it's a teleprompted. You know, we're in the studio. We've got you know, a couple of hands, really just 2 people or solo, you know, solo camera up, also teleprompting and running audio at the same time. So we're starting to see a little bit of that, but for the most part, it's me staring into this tiny little piece of glass here.
This webcam, yeah. It's all webcam work. How would you say? So, have you been back in the field? Been back on set in the studio?
My one of my primary roles is to fly around to different locations. Like I said, I'm a contractor for FAA, so I fly around to different airports, different radar rooms around the country, and I primarily do documentary style or very lightly scripted pieces. And then, you know, we shoot everything that moves out the field, come back, spend a couple weeks editing, rinse and repeat. I haven't been out to a facility since February. The last place I went was down to Atlanta for the NCAA project, which actually the Final Four was canceled, so it didn't wind up happening anyway. So I haven't traveled in a long time. So new normal for me is being locked at the desk. And, you know, the few shoots that I am on are, like I said, studio and still camera on sticks. I haven't been wobbly with a camera in quite some time.
Right. Yeah. No more handhelds. It's all you know, nailed down.
It's sitting down here underneath of this desk with a whole lot of dust on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know, a lot of my previous guests, I'd say in the last month, you know, were, I'd say it's 50-50, you know, some of the actors, you know, I have a lot of voice actors that couldn't be busier, you know, dubbing things or doing voice work and maybe half of the that the regular traditional actors, half of them have been back on set. I have not. I've been completely teleworking and remote working and virtual streaming and that sort of work since this all happened. And I had to put that stipulation on myself. Me and the wife, we have a newborn, and we brought him home. We brought him home right before the pandemic. So
very new.
Yeah. So we were blessed that it wasn't so strict in that hospital. I think 2 weeks later is when we heard about all the nobody in the hospital except for the mother, maybe the father, and that sort of deal. But
gotcha.
You mentioned you've actually been very busy. So let's kind of backtrack and be more specific. I guess in your case, how would you say you were impacted the first couple of months?
So it wasn't the Wild West. We still had the biggest hurdle for myself and my other counterpart was getting I think we've got 256 terabytes worth of footage on an internal server at the office. Getting that available to us so that we could keep working was the biggest hurdle. We spent a couple of weeks right off the head just trying to get access to our stuff. Once we did that, we were still able to produce largely in the same way as we were before. It wasn't really until May that things started getting weird, because at that point we had blown through what we had previously shot, and we were starting to get into the new stuff. And then May and June, figuring out Zoom and how to, and best practices for recording, and then blitzing that out to whoever we were interviewing. I've been doing a lot of most of the FAA has never teleworked. They have no idea what it is. They didn't even know how to define the word. So a lot of the technicians, a lot of the folks I'm interviewing are like, we don't even know how to work from home. So we did a huge amount of work just addressing people's concerns, like, how do you work from home? How do you set home and work balance, work-life balance boundaries and things like that. It was May and June were really where things took on a new meaning for us. And they've definitely settled down at this point. People have hit their groove, and I don't see us going back to the office anytime soon. So we're now comfortable, August, September, and now in October, we're starting to feel comfortable doing what we're doing.
Yeah. And it's funny. So you were saying FAA, and that's flight. That's flight. But then I kept, I always kind of get that confused with FCC, which is communications.
Yeah.
But even with flight, they're always on a headset, in these booths, talking to each other. How are you not used to that? but teleworking, comm working, whatever.
Yes.
I mean, isn't that a part of the job?
It is for a percentage of us, and I'm not on the operational side. I'm communications, I'm this tiny little bubble of, we have what amounts to an ad agency buried inside of the FAA. So it's having come from advertising and chop shops and production houses. My life is kind of the same, but the folks that are executives, the whole the style of management where if I can't see you, you're not working, is prevalent. That's what the FAA has been built on. And so now and technicians and controllers and people who are essential, they're still going where they need to go. They might not be going into the office and hanging out while they wait for a task. They might be assigned a task and then going into work and then doing everything else, all their reporting remotely. But that's something brand new for a lot of these guys.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. Even, having been on set, being crew, being an AD or a director, some sort of cam op, you're always kind of looking over someone's shoulder. In a way, I worked at Discovery Channel for years. There's always that kind of looking over someone's shoulder, and now there's got to be this trust factor. Things kind of come together. You wake up the next morning, and all the assets that you were expecting to be on this cloud are now there. Yeah. Oh, wow. And then maybe you got to like, you know, QC them, or you got to check them or watch them or whatever, and then maybe do notes. But it's just like, okay, well, let's wait and see them all. Even before the quarantine, I was working on some web series where I reached out just remotely to voice actors, and I said, here's some scripts, you know, like sign them onto the show and whatever the deal memos were. But then I said, hey, here's 5 scripts. You got about a month, and just like, it's like, okay, a month later. And then it was like boop, 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 emails, 1 MP3, 2 MP3s, 3 MP3s, 10 MP3s. It's like, wow. And then started listening to them, like, these guys are phenomenal. And then there's some that never got back to me. And it's like, okay, well, hey, you did such a great job. Can you knock out another 5, but in a week, because I had these other Joes? Yeah. Hey, listen, I mean, that was something different, because no one was getting paid up front. It's like this kind of like passion project, hopefully a back end deal, but yeah, it's like now it's like one of those, okay, hopefully those assets are in that cloud by the end of the week, by tomorrow.
Yeah. And even though, you know, we're using our solution to get all that footage in our archive was Dropbox. You know, we tried out Huddle, we tried out, you know, a couple of other things, and for the most part, we just have to selectively sync off Dropbox, and then, you know, somebody sends us a text or an email, hey, I got this folder coming to you, you know, quickly link, download, unlink. That way you're not crushing my Mac Pro with, you know, terabyte after terabyte of information. You know, I'm limited to, I think, 40 terabytes at home, which to somebody that started in mini DV and VHS, that sounds like a monster amount, but yeah, now 40 terabytes, I have to selectively sync a lot of the stuff that I'm doing. So you get it in, download it, chuck it, and then when you're done with it, send it back out to the cloud so you don't have to worry about it anymore. It's a different way of working than I've ever thought about.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, like 10 years ago, it was digitize it, edit it, and then delete the raws, and now you've got your final, but you got to delete the raws. How many different My Books can you keep track of? And you got to clean off My Books, and it's kind of the same thing. And now you got to like dump raw footage. Yeah.
Well, and you always had when I stepped out of the comfort zone of having a tape on a shelf, you know, when my raw was no longer always going to be sitting there on a shelf, I went into a tailspin. I had no idea how to behave, you know. Now I'm like, 40 terabytes. What am I supposed to do with this little space?
Yeah. and back then you had those shelves of all these mini DVs or DV cams, and it was start sorting through stuff and trying to figure out where the hell you left off.
Yep.
Yeah. That was the Wild West. That was Wild West. But you've never been busier, and that's fantastic success story.
Yeah, I'm actually as we talk, I'm monitoring Media Encoder over here as I crush a couple of deliverables out before the end of the day. So, you know, it's multitasking at its best.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned watching a couple of previous episodes. You know, Bruce Milton.
Yeah, Bruce Milton and Janine Hunter came to mind as they jumped out real quick. I watched their episodes. There are a couple of other ones I dialed into as well, but those are guys that I worked real closely with, Bruce in particular. Well,
me and Bruce were discussing, I think, Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
And we had this huge passionate disagreement about the ending and how I hated that show. I don't know if you're familiar with that show.
As a viewer, not as an Uber fan.
Yeah. Well, he finally sent me an email confirming what I had said about that stupid show and its stupid conclusion, and how it was just a ripoff. Like, I wasted my entire life. And spoiler alert, once again, on Battlestar Galactica, but they're our ancestors that landed on Earth. They landed in, and I think Bruce still even got it wrong. He said they landed in prehistoric times. And I said, I don't think prehistoric times. I think they landed in Australia when there was only Aborigines there.
Okay.
And so they're but they're still that much of ancestors, I guess. But no, it's just like we had this back and forth about BSG, and Janine's doing great out in Atlanta, and she's there.
I had lost touch with her. It was nice to see her. I had no idea she was down in Atlanta. Last time I spoke to her, she was over at the Discovery Tech Center.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that's that's the one in Silver Spring.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's going back a minute too, because I think I was down there over 15 years ago now. Yeah, my son just turned 15, so that long ago.
And that's
he
probably
wasn't born yet.
That's probably how we know each other as well, because I was there. I was at. You're saying DT? Well, the warehouse.
Yeah,
not the big building, but the small little warehouse that they was a nickname.
Mm-hmm.
I was there for about 4 years.
Okay.
From around like 05 to 09, and then I went freelance after that.
Okay. Yeah, I was at various different stages. I did about 3 years with multiple Henninger locations down there,
mm-hmm.
from about 03 till about 05. So we probably just crossed paths.
Yeah.
So.
But speaking of BSG, have you? Mm-hmm. What have you been binge watching, binge reading?
I saw that question when you reached out to me. I was like, do I watch anything? and
except for my podcast, which is great.
Exactly.
I'm forever grateful.
Yeah, I do watch a lot of YouTube. I watch almost no television, football on Sundays being the exception to that rule. But I've got 4 kids from teenager to toddler, and so the television is usually not in my possession at any particular time of the day.
Not anymore.
Yeah. No. It's either Disney Plus or Netflix. I think it. Now I'll say, I have been in the room during binges of my wife and daughters are binging Friends at the moment. They went through and they did the entire what's the Good Place. They've binged a whole mess of stuff. But usually I'm reading a book or just zoning out. So I actually I do a lot of reading. Kindle Unlimited is fantastic because you can just pick something and read it for free. You don't have to worry about paying for book after book after book.
Yeah.
So
that's what's the last one that stood out?
Let's see. I read a lot of fantasy, a lot of sci-fi. There's some interesting stuff. Right now I'm tuned into a series by an author called his name is Sever Bronny, Bronny, and it's it's kind of a Harry Potter-esque, wizards, warlocks, that kind of thing. It's interesting enough to keep me in it for 5 books, but we're coming to the tail of that one. Read a lot of Brandon Sanderson. I don't know if you're familiar with his stuff, but he epic fantasy along the lines of Robert Jordan. He actually finished up a series for Robert Jordan, Wheel of Time, Wheel of Time is now in production for a Prime show. Amazon Prime is doing that. And so I read all the way through his books and then picked up with Sanderson's books and read all the way through them. And, I read a lot. I
have heard of Wheel of Time. That does sound familiar to me.
Yeah.
But,
it's all wizards and warlock and lateral lisp stuff, It's super sweet. But it's lose yourself in the pages kind of reading. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I'm so backlogged as far as what's on my queues with streaming services, what's backlogged on my queue just with YouTube alone.
Yeah.
And that's all like, short form content. And then all the streaming services are majorly backlogged. Because me and the wife are always like, let's just watch Curb Your Enthusiasm for the 3rd time. Let's just watch, we have our like kind of rewatch things, and then we have our fall asleep in front of things. Yeah. And then very rarely will we be like, do we want to start this show or do we want to do a movie? Mm-hmm. And let's just watch Curb again, and then and so everything just keeps getting backlogged, and it's like I'm almost looking forward to these weekends where if I get like half a day alone, I'm just gonna like maybe binge watch something, and then I end up just watching YouTube.
If I have a half a day alone, first off, I've forgotten to do something because I never get a half a day. But I'm going outside, or I've got a wood shop in the basement. I'm going downstairs. I'm going to make something, go for a hike. I spend so much of my time in front of a screen. That's why I don't binge too much stuff. I want to get up and I want to go outside. I want to get away from this stuff.
Right. Yeah. No. And I agree. There's a lot of times me and the wife will just take the kid to the park. Mm-hmm. and drench the swing with Lysol. And then, you know, we're at the park and the kid is just so excited. I don't feel bad for him, but I am kind of concerned. It's unfortunate. Well, luckily he's only less than a year old.
Yeah.
He's not even a year old yet. So by the time, and he does go to daycare. It's a very small daycare. It's been, you know, triple approved and triple verified and all that stuff. But, so he does get some interaction with like some of these other kids, but we take him to a park and he just starts yelling at people like, and he's like,
other people,
a lot of other people, like doing like things that he doesn't really see a lot of other people doing, except for like maybe 4 other kids his age in a playpen with blocks or something. But he sees kids of all ages on these swings and all these slides, and he's super excited. So it's just fantastic to do that. And that's really like our free time. But then there might be that pocket moment where whenever the wife says to me like, oh, hey, do you mind if I do a social, a Zoom happy hour with the girls? I'm like, absolutely. Hey, please go bye. And then I'm on my computer and I might have the kid and I'm drinking and I'm watching whatever I want to watch by myself. So that's like, those are the best little times to be generous to the wife. Yeah. Yeah.
I luck out in that, we're a scouting family, so I've got 2 different units of scouts, one for the boys and then one for the girls, BSA, not Girl Scouts, but the girls troop. And I'm an assistant scoutmaster for both units. So just about every weekend, you know, I'm outside doing something. You know, last weekend I took them backpacking on the C&O Canal, the girls, that is. Next weekend I'm taking the boys out to Valley Forge, and we're going to do, you know, walking 10-mile tour of Valley Forge. So, you know, we got, you know, a lot of, I have the benefit of being able to get outside with a purpose. It's not just escapism. I mean, there's a bit of escapism too, where, you know, everything that comes up, I volunteer. I'm like, I'll lead that one. My wife is here with the toddler most of the time. And whenever she wants to go out, I'm like, go Barnes & Noble, go do whatever you want to do. You know, this evening she's got like a Zoom social with her college sorority. So, I mean, there's anytime that I can offer her the chance to get social, I do it, because I want to get out of here too. And I don't want to take that away from her.
Yeah, absolutely. So Boy Scouts of America has girls troops.
Yes. Yeah. 2 years ago, they integrated. And so now there are some integrated troops, but more often than not, the charter organization, the church or fire hall or wherever, instead of having a boys and girls combined, they have now a boys troop and the girls troop. And that's the situation we're in, where I've got the boys troop and the girls troop out of the same church. So, okay.
Yeah. Is that thing that Ben Shapiro was being a real brat about?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a schmuck. he is, and I hate to bring him up, but this is not the first time I've actually brought him up. I mean, me and a couple other guests have talked about this freaking guy, but yeah, like just making a big stink about it. Who cares? I mean, whether it's Girl Scouts for girls or whether it's a girls troop in Boy Scouts,
it's the differences in the curriculum are between Girl Scouting and BSA are vast. Yeah. And BSA now offers the same curriculum for boys as they do for the girls. And I've seen enormous growth in my 2 girls. And they're having a great time, you know, racing each other to rank. And, you know, who'd have thought that my 12-year-old, she'll be 13 this weekend, but she broke her leg riding a bike 8 weeks ago now, and she just did 7 miles on the C&O Canal in a walking boot because she refused to not be on this hike with us. You know, that's the kind of determination that we see.
Yep.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Hell yeah. Oh, yeah, I love it. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, what's next? What's next on the agenda? And again, offline, you were telling me you're kind of like, you're basically a W-2 guy. So I guess it's just FAA.
Yeah. Keep on keeping on. You know, the few passion projects that I have, they're not video based. You know, I go downstairs in the wood shop, you know, the standing desk I'm at right now is a piece of furniture that I made. You know, I've got a couple guitars that I've started and need to finish. So the passion projects I have are actually making stuff. When I'm, my job is totally virtual. I don't have anything tactile. I don't even have those tapes anymore. I don't have any beta SP that I can hold and say, this is my job. So a couple of years ago, I got into making stuff with my hands, and that's the next thing on the agenda, because work is work. It's FAA is I love my job and I continue to do it to the best of my ability, but it's work. Mm-hmm. It's a W-2 thing. Yeah. So I have to find something to make, the creativity pop.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, for me, end all be all is film and TV, acting.
I know a lot of my friends are the same way. A lot of the guys that I work with have side video gigs. It's just, that's a switch that I never was able to flip.
Yeah. But also, with the house, I definitely took advantage of the downtime during this quarantine, because we bought this house maybe 5 months before the quarantine hit. Okay. So there was like honeydew, the honeydew list. Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? And let's start, jotting stuff down. And then that happened. And I'd say March, it was like, I had to take doors off. The previous owners painted over paint, painted over paint, painted over paint, and it got to a point the doors wouldn't shut. So I had to take these doors off and with a belt sander, and shave a good centimeter off the top side and bottom, and then put it back on, and it shuts like a perfect door. And I just once a week I would take a door, and then I would do something else, maybe paint a room, patch a hole, take a door, paint a room, patch a hole. Patch a hole, and it was just like that for like a good couple months. And and even now, I think I finished the last door in September.
Okay.
Because
now starting on Windows.
Maybe I got to go on YouTube and figure out how to completely change a sliding glass door or something. Now we got that to contend with.
Godspeed.
But like I said, but then it was April. I think mid-April. Also in March, I started doing the podcast, but then mid-April, a lot of my former rosters that were delving into virtual saw my podcast, and they, dude, we're doing that. We're right back to work with the industrial and the corporate stuff, but we're doing it just like you're doing it. And I'm like, hey, I can do that. And then it was like, when now I got to fit in the paid, obviously the bills come first. So the paid work comes first, and then the podcast. But I found pockets of time for editing some passion projects that were in the can, and then a lot of it's just like filming the kid and taking pictures, one picture a day, and that sort of like little side little.
Yeah, you got to find the fire inside to keep some of that stuff going. I've got just a little fun social media thing that I've been doing, where every day since March 16th. I've posted a series of pictures of the family or the dog or the kids. I call it the isolation day log. And we're up to, I think today is 213 days that we've been doing this every day of the week. And it's got a little bit of I don't want to say it's got a following, because it's mostly family and friends, but people are asking, hey, when are you going to post? When are you going to post? I'm like, come on, man, I got stuff to do.
Yeah. Well, for me, the trick is posting, doing 2 things a day, so that, as far as YouTube goes, the trick was trying to figure out, okay, if I could do 2 podcasts a day, and then one's live and then one pre-recorded, then I can schedule the next one for the next day, and kind of keep that going to where I'm I'm ahead of the schedule. The way shows do it. Yeah. The way big networks do it. Let's say a reality show is shot all within 3 months, and then they schedule all those episodes following 9 months. But while that's not even wrapped yet, they're shooting the next season, and then it's kind of just like a constant flow, a constant release of things. Yeah. And then, but then again, I got so busy that I was backlogged or ahead logged, forward logged, scheduled with the podcast, and then ran out. And then I'm kind of, now I'm kind of forward scheduled again. but I can see with some stuff that's coming up in the next couple of months, I'm going to run out and it's not going to be any like fresh content.
You got to front load a bunch of these things. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's the trick. You got to like have these quarantine logs kind of like forward written maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be nice if I could do that. You know, I haven't spent enough time shooting future purposed stuff. So
right.
We'll see.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I said, I got enough kids in here that I'm just trying to juggle. You know, I haven't even figured out what I'm going to have for dinner today. So Lord knows I probably still have to go to the store to get it. Yeah. Well, so what's the fire inside that keeps you pumping through all this? Through I mean, you got the podcast. This isn't a moneymaker. It's just a passion thing. Where's the fire coming from?
That's a good question. I mean, there's a lot to it. Prove the general populace wrong that, you know, everyone says, you know, you got to have a day job and, well, I mean, eventually, I mean, the hope is to get a viewership with the podcast, that there will be some sort of ad revenue, residual passive income with it. But the fire is, listen, what else is there to do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I want to stay productive somehow. And, you know, 6 months ago, this was it.
Yeah.
And then 5 months ago, this showed my previous rosters. He's clearly capable of doing what we're setting forth to do. And then so this skill set turned into the corporate industrial thing. Now, as far as keeping this going, hey, listen, there's a number of things. I'm networking. Essentially, I spammed the hell out of LinkedIn, and that's pretty much how I got you. I just spammed everybody, you know, from you know, motion picture, graphic media, TV, film, whatever, in the area. And then I went US, and then I kind of refined it again with freelance only. And then I took that off, and then it was just U.S. motion picture, film, and TV people. And just about everybody, if they didn't get back to me right away, they got back to me eventually. But still, a lot of people are interested, especially now, because what else is there to do? I think I got, in the last 6 months, I think I got 4 people saying, how do I know you? Is this legit? I'm not sure. And I'm like, I might have replied to them, and I might not have, because there was 40 people saying yes. Yeah. I'm not going to focus on 1 or 2s that are saying no, or kind of, bad way to phrase it is kind of giving me attitude about it. But as opposed to
I gotcha.
As opposed to the 40 people that want to come on, you know, it's like you work with that instead. But there's also this networking. A lot of folks I've been talking to, they're like, "Hey, man, when the floodgates open, let's work, let's collaborate on some. We're sharing ideas. I'm definitely going to want to bring them on some of my projects. They said they want to bring me on some of theirs, and that's fantastic. But again, like I said, this is more the creative outlet of what I'm doing with the corporate and the industrial stuff. This is more the creative stuff. This is something that I'm kind of running and not really writing, but, you know, like I'm producing and directing this. And I'm meeting great creatives and great, media folks, film and TV folks like yourself, just sharing ideas, just shooting the shit, and people want to watch that. People are entertained by it. And this might turn I mean, who knows? In a year, this could turn into the thing, or this thing could turn into something else, or both. Yeah. And what the fire, I think, is just to stay within film and TV. You know, that because as a writer, director, as an actor, like, for example, you know, and I brought this up a million times on the show before, actors have always said, if I have a fallback, I'm going to fall back on it. You know, actors that are also, you know, realtors or real estate agents, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to just end up falling back on selling the houses. They're going to get tied up. They're going to get so sucked. 10 years later, they realize they've just been realtors. They never did the acting. Yeah. Schwarzenegger always said, never have a plan B, ever. And your plan A will succeed. Forget about it. Because it has to. Yeah. For me, I thought, okay, if my fallback is still within film and TV, audio, video, I can then kind of morph that and like experiment and learn new things, take those little skill sets, take those little ideas, put it into something else. Kind of, so, 5-6 years ago, I got into live streaming, doing these conferences at the convention centers, at the hotels, these tax seminars, these Medicaid seminars, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Traveling
all over the world, filming it, live streaming it, and then and building a skill set and keeping in my mind, I could do this with a podcast.
Yeah.
I could do this with streaming video games. I mean, like, you got like these video game streamers that are making millions of dollars.
I don't get that.
Maybe not millions of dollars, but
they're making
more than me just playing video games on YouTube.
And talking like a moron while some 15-year-old kid watches it.
But I mean, even for me, a 40-year-old, some of it's really funny. There's this video you should YouTube Crash Cab. So this guy plays video games live. He joins these video games, and he always takes over a helicopter. In like Call of Duty, Battlefield, whatever. He'll be the helicopter pilot. He picks up his squad. They're on their little mission to go fight the other team, the red team or whatever. But in mid-flight, he goes, "All right, folks, welcome to Crash Cab. If you can answer this question correctly, we'll continue on our mission. If you answer it wrong, we crash." And he asked them questions that there's no way it's like, who's the fifth president of the United States?
Okay.
Like, what? And they got like 10 seconds to answer, so he doesn't give them time to like Google it or anything. Plus, they're playing a video game. How are they going to pull up Google, right?
Yeah.
And they always get it wrong, so he just intentionally crashes it.
That's funny.
And even better, there was one where he asked his team the most random thing, and someone actually answered it right. And he goes, "Holy crap! Congratulations, you answered it right. Unfortunately, the name of this game is Crash Cab. We crashed." And he still crashed it, and everybody's screaming at him. I mean, and so take a look at the podcast that I'm doing, and take a look at the live streaming that I'm doing. This guy took what a lot of guys were doing, and then did like this micro niche thing. It's like a prank channel, live stream video gaming channel, live stream podcast. It's like it's a mix of like 3 or 4 different things.
Yeah.
He's got a huge following. He takes little snippets and he puts it on all the different platforms. And so with Zombie SquadCAST, I mean, there's a whole bigger backstory behind that. But when the floodgates open and then there's bigger and better opportunities for this podcast, or me and my colleagues can then just scoop up everybody I had on and maybe just work on projects, and then kind of just like do like a retrospective. Like 2 years ago, we were in the quarantine, and now doing this with FAA, doing this with Bruce Milton over there in Richmond, shooting this commercial, shooting this film with Janine Hunter, shooting this film in Atlanta, and whatever. I mean,
nice.
But I like experimentation also. You know what I mean? I have another web series, which is two web series that are produced just like those ID crime shows, but one takes place in the DC universe, one takes place in the Marvel universe.
Gotcha.
And it was an experimentation. Like, hey, I worked on these real ID crime shows. I know how uber low budget they are, but let's try this experiment, really bizarre experiment, but do it set in the DC universe on these ultra obscure, not even B-level villains, like C-level villains. Like, I know DC fans probably don't even know who these bizarre villains are, and we're kind of doing like a backstory, but also they serve as origin stories, because there's other YouTube channels that do like super villain origins or whatever. So in a sense, this is an origin story, but then it's produced like an ID crime show, and experimentation, production hacks. I mean, if I get like a bizarre idea, a lot of times I'll just run with it.
Yeah.
Might try to like, tweak it a little bit and see how does it fit? Is it worth my time? Because money, I can make money back, but time you can't get back. And
yeah.
I know that's a big tangent on
no.
What's the fire, but
it was I had 2 theories when I asked that question, and you kind of you dovetailed both of them. So, but
you tell me.
Well, I figured.
What were you thinking? Yeah.
Well, I thought there were 2 different angles. One, without having any control over the situation in COVID, without having any idea what was coming or going, just one thing that you could solidly grab hold of and say, I have control over this thing. This is something that I make, something that I control. The second route was basically I have immense creative energy, and if I'm not doing something, then I'm going to go stir crazy. So it sounds like a little bit of both. Like you felt the need to make something, so you made a thing, and then it was something that you could control, and they kind of brought together a little bit.
Definitely. And also, I'm not saying I want to be like a YouTuber.
No.
I'm not saying that's all I want to be, is just a YouTuber, but YouTube is this platform for a lot of independent filmmakers to get noticed. And you know, I'm not dumping on Vimeo. I'm surprised to still see people like putting stuff on Vimeo. I know it's more niche for like
5-10 years ago, Vimeo is where you wanted to put your art piece.
Yeah.
But now nobody uses it. So
I mean, people still use it, and I'm curious as to like what that platform's offering. But YouTube, everybody uses YouTube. If you're smart with some hashtags, people see my stuff. And so I am still, so also on top of that, yes, I'm still trying to maintain that viewership on YouTube. I had other stuff on YouTube, and now that we're not actually on set, on location, able to produce what I was producing before. I had another web series where it was like a personal BTS on all the different gigs I had, or the traveling, or some of the family and personal stuff. And every episode just documented that.
Okay.
But now we're not going anywhere. I mean, there's only so much footage I can put on YouTube of my kid. You know, I mean, I love it, but you know, it might not grow viewership. Whereas a podcast,
sharing of ideas, informational
with other creatives. And now that's my niche. It's not politicians. It's not radicals, it's not maybe entrepreneurs, but it's mostly creatives and how
industrious.
Yeah. That's kind of the niche with this. But it was just something, like you said, it was definitely a way to stay active and productive, but also networking. Maybe kind of sneakily getting me on some sets, getting me some gigs in a year or two. Because I've never been busier now. But what's that? I don't know what the hybrid kind of universe is going to be like in a year. I don't know what the new normal or the progressed 2 years from now is going to be like. And so doing all this networking and kind of communicating, and they're going to be like, oh man, I remember that guy's a really good, plays a really good cop on TV, and I was on his podcast, cool dude, let me get him on. Or he's an experienced AD as well. He's a COVID compliance officer. Who knows how long COVID compliance officers are going to be needed on sets?
I see that going for 2-3 years.
I mean, like you said, it's just it's definitely those two things. It's a way to stay productive, way to stay creative. It's the same exact file in this streaming software, same exact graphics, but I think with the content within that, because like podcasts are a hot item right now, and also the audio, just the audio snippet of this goes on to Anchor, which is like our AudioCast version of this, and that might blow up, and not the YouTube. The Anchor thing might blow up. I don't know. So it's just like experimentation. It's like kind of just throwing shit in the fire and seeing
what burns,
what catches, But
that's cool.
But speaking of which, what's your view of the new normal? And so, well, let me specify. So, a lot more recently, a lot of guests have been saying, like, maybe not so much the new normal, but how are we? What's the progression of this hybrid new normal? But I'll just say, for the lack of a better word, what's your idea of the new normal?
It's a little amorphous to me at the moment. I think there's there's a solid chance that things won't ever, for me, professionally won't ever make their way back to where I was February and before, because we have, I was flying to these facilities and then I would just have the run of the facility, wherever I needed to go to get a shot, wherever I needed to go to interview somebody, I had keys to the building. My swipe card gave me the access to wherever I needed to be. I don't see that going back that way.
Yeah.
I think from this point forward, I'll have very specific places that I'm allowed to go, very specific places I'm allowed to shoot, and my kids are going outside to play.
That's the new normal.
Yeah, exactly. So, I see myself having, when I am able to travel and get back into facilities and do these docu-style pieces, I see them being much more slimmed down. I might not travel with a producer. I might not travel with executives or with, thank you, Kate. I might not travel with a team of people anymore. It might be solo band. I might be one man banding it. And that, if I start traveling anytime soon, I see that as the way to go. Much more stripped down crews. We don't do too much with full crew. I'm one of 3 videographers in the entire FAA. We've got a couple producers, we've got an executive producer, and then a handful of graphics folks. So, we're not talking an enormous team. And, a lot of us double dip. I'm also a photographer. So I do a lot of portraits when I'm in the office. That I see those tasks being much more slimmed down. I don't know beyond my tiny little bubble what is going to happen with the industry, but I see that as for myself, more one-man bands, fewer opportunities to go to places, fewer places that I have access to once I'm out in the field again. We'll see. I don't know. It's not going to be these like throw 7 people in a Escalade or a Yukon and drive to the top of a mountain anymore. It's not going to be that, but whatever happens, it'll be a different show. Yeah.
I think people are going to play with different equipment and different and different angles and different mediums. I do see more. I do see myself being less long form pieces, and I do see a lot more short form, 30-second to, I still consider a 7-minute piece a short form piece, because I do, some of these, I do some half-hour programming, and these docu-style things can go a little bit of time. I do see a lot more short form stuff coming. Yeah. And what came to mind was I think Kill Bill Volume 1, his entire, he did an entire background scene on her name, Oren Ishii, was like anime. Yeah. It's all done like an anime. And so I think we're going to see this intermingling of, say, a feature film that's going to have CGI. It's going to be like Pixar animation intermingled with anime, intermingled with live action, intermingled. People are going to say, like, listen, does it really matter if the whole film is live action narrative, or if it jumps
styles, natural born killer style?
Yeah, perfect. Another great example. If you have this script, but then they shoot a third of it, like a found footage, and then shoot a third of it like an anime, then shoot a third of it like you're like Indiana Jones type of thing, and or like
that's all. You're also calling them an animatrix, where you found tiny little snippets of the bigger story. You produce those in a different way and ran with that way. That's interesting to think about.
And again, I mean, Tarantino did it with Kill Bill Volume 1, and it was accepted. So now I think audiences will be accepting of the story and of the character development. But you can do that through, if you can do that through any medium, then why not that one piece have a number of different mediums within and of itself? Even taking a look at, say, going back to those crime shows, those ID crime shows, you have a person, you have a talking head against a green screen, kind of like that's a analyst or a specialist or a reporter or the detective of the case. You know, he's talking about it, but then you have a voiceover narrator talking over found footage, forensic photos, crime scene photos, and then you have a dramatic reenactment, and there's like 17 different mediums within this 30-minute episode, all together telling the story. If not, you know, not just telling the same story, that is the story. And so to think like with that kind of production value, you can pump in more production value and quality into some sort of piece, whatever that is, feature length film, or if it's a whole series, let's say Walking Dead, but Walking Dead is based on a graphic novel.
Yes, it is.
What if Walking Dead, you know, those episodes intermingled those live action shots with motion comic shots that they just couldn't pull off because of COVID compliance. So then they throw in, you know, scene 1 is live action with Michonne and Rick, and then scene 2 is a motion comic of Michonne and Rick. With, you know, a million zombies coming after them, and then they cut to scene 3 of just Michonne and Rick in a house. Right, because those two actors are clear. They can be together. Right, and
that's interesting. That's an interesting way to think about it. I might have to start thinking about how to work that into some of my pieces.
Like what's like, you know, okay, so you have an editing project, and then you have these parts seen missing, right? And so like, because we haven't shot that, we don't have the budget, or we haven't gotten clear to shoot, you know, all these people. Okay, let's just do it on a Zoom, like a recorded Zoom meeting, or we do this animation wise, or we do this Pixar.
You're bringing up a couple things that are tickling nerves in my head, because they're actual things that I think about without having put them together in this sentence structure that you're laying out. You know, there are a lot of places that we require, like we FAA require footage from that are physically, you can't get there. You know, weather cameras in Alaska, you know, you're not going to be able to get up there into the mountain passes during a snowstorm. You know, these kinds of things that are, or the top of a 200-foot radar tower. You know, I'm not insured to climb that thing, so we have to figure out a way to do it. Maybe I can start to break those into an animation. I've also noticed you brought up doing pieces over Zoom like this. My audience, for as much as I care about 4K and cine lenses and the things that I require to make my projects the utmost quality that I can going into the machine, my audience does not seem to care that Zoom is a dramatic drop. They are willing to watch something that is dramatically lower quality. So maybe the seed change that we're going to see is a willingness to accept a different viewpoint, and that viewpoint maybe not like camera angle viewpoint, but you're saying, break the story into digestible pieces that you can actually manage the budget and manage the production of. That's an interesting thought.
And again, going back years before the quarantine, 10 years before the quarantine, the rise of YouTube, the rise of new media. You know, there was a channel I followed for a while, but I can't remember the name of the channel, but it follows this couple, Rob and Dana Lynn Bailey. The last name is Bailey. One guy's a power lifter, and she won Miss Olympia a number of times. But they do like a million other things. They build custom drift cars. They have a drift car warehouse. They make custom gym equipment. They have clothing. They have supplement. They have a supplement and dietary line for GNC type stuff. And they were reading, and you know, every once in a while they'll read comments. And they said, "Why don't you guys do a reality show?" And he looks in the cameras and goes, "This is the reality show." But we have control over it. But, you know, instead of having a crew of 10 guys with those Steadicam rigs, you know, always following around, and then a security crew, listen, we got a couple of DSLRs, we got our iPhones, and we edit our own stuff. This is the reality show. It's lower quality, maybe lower quality than, say, a Bravo reality show, Real Housewives, or Jersey Shore or whatever, but more people are watching them than they're watching the Real Housewives because of their content over quality. And so leading back to what you were saying, like these shots of Alaska or whatever, you guys can purchase stock footage
to an extent. Some of the stuff that we're doing is a little bit more specific, but yeah, we do.
But then you could just do a voiceover over some stock footage, and I don't know. Yeah, but I get that. But then there are some limitations of if there is something very, very, very specific.
That's where we have animators come in. Or we'll figure something out. And I think that's the mantra is, we'll figure something out.
Or is there somebody there, they can just on their phone shoot it and upload it. And there's always that workaround. There's always
I don't need my FS7 with my Canon Cineglass,
not yet. Pretty soon again.
Yeah, but somebody with an iPhone can run out and snap a couple of stills or grab a couple seconds of footage, and I can run with that. Absolutely.
So, if you had one last bit of advice, a last point or two, for our viewers, one last bit of advice, what would that be?
Man. Make a thing, whatever that thing is, just go out and make a thing.
Yeah.
In some people's case, your case, it's making content, making people think outside the box and have conversations about it. If somebody like me, go outside and dig in the dirt or find a piece of wood and bang a nail into it, just make a thing. That's got to keep busy, got to keep the brain juices flowing.
Yeah.
I'll sit outside at in my fire pit, pick up a piece of wood, and I'll carve a spoon. Just not because I need a spoon by any stretch of the imagination, just because I need to keep my hands busy. I need to make a thing. Just go out and make things.
Yeah, and to touch back on what you said about why am I making this podcast is it's the third try, and there's going to be these moments that some people call it these viral moments, but it could be an inspiring moment. It could be like the funniest moment. And the second time we tried the podcast, when I was trying to do like this virtual podcast, I think it was a year and a half ago, maybe. There was this one episode that my buddy couldn't hear anything. I can't even not laugh talking about it, but my buddy couldn't hear anything. And he just starts tearing his whole setup apart. He's got a big mic. He just throws his headphones off, and it sounds like someone's tearing up hardwood. and so there's three of us, right? And I'm saying like, what is that noise? And like I realize he's off screen, and you see his mic kind of shaking, and I'm like, what is going on? And the noise is getting worse and worse, and you just start seeing his gear like going away, toppling over. And then he goes, you buy shit, you get shit, and he's just tearing his whole thing apart. It's the funniest. And maybe in the link, I'll put a link to that old episode, and it's on a totally different channel, and I'll send you a direct link to it.
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
The first 5 minutes of this episode, I'm dying. I even go back and watch my own thing. If I need a chuckle, I know where to go. If it's not something else, I watch this. And it sounds like, there's construction crew ripping apart hard floorboards. And I'm just like, what is going on? You see Mike's going over it. Anyway, I'll put the link to that one in this description as well. But not to take away from Adam. But I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, just make a thing, because you never know what's gonna.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what that thing is. Doesn't matter what that thing is. Just make.
Yeah, I mean, shrooms are grown off of cow poop, and a lot of people have fun with shrooms. You never know. You just make a thing, and it might one person's trash is another person's treasure. There it
is.
Make a thing. Absolutely, I can't agree with you more. Are there any? Of course, are there any socials, links, plugs you wanna put out there?
Most of what I'm doing is internal, so it's not even where somebody can go and see it.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to find me, go outside and look around. I'm probably taking a walk someplace.
Fair enough. Awesome. Well, Adam, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. Great chat.
Yeah, man, it's a pleasure. It was nice talking to you.
And I can't appreciate your patience more with the constant rescheduling and bumping times.
It was funny though, because I think when you originally reached out to me, there might have been I don't think there were 30 episodes of the podcast, and maybe 28, 30 episodes. And now, well, you're up there.
I think this is like 90.
90
I think this is
something.
like 94. I think this one's going to be 94, 95. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe a big social Zoom party for the 100th.
That'd be nice.
And it won't be there. And it won't. And we'll probably get no content done. It's just going to be like stupid drunk people on
Zoom.
on Zoom. Yeah. Why not? Why not?
Exactly.
Well, hey, I can't thank you again for coming on, man. A lot of great stories, a lot of great ideas. I guess I'll do a plug. I've been plugging Landon's Mafia every episode. Landon, if you buy one of these shirts, proceeds go to Landon's pediatric cancer center, and I think he's in his 2nd or 3rd remission of sarcoma. I got to double check so I can put the correct information out there. But links to his GoFundMe, links to his links for donations. You can get one of these shirts. Proceeds go to him and to his pediatric cancer center for I think for some of the other kids that are there too. So
it's a great cause.
That's a plug on my end. But Adam, can't thank you enough for coming on. It was a fantastic episode.
Yeah, man.
I learned a lot. To my viewers, I hope I've earned the privilege of your time and viewership. I know my guest has, and until next time, you know what to do.